This is the Žižek Dictionary entry for Master-Signifier by David Gunkel. The term Master-Signifier is a Lacanian concept developed in response to the structural linguistics of Ferdinand de Saussure. Saussure, Žižek explains, was the first to formulate the notion of differentiality, pointing out that the identity of a signifier resides only in a series of differences, the features which distinguish it from other signifiers. There is no positivity in a signifier. It is only a series of what it is not. This structuralist formation significantly departs from the usual understanding of the relationship of words and things. According to the classically determined concept of the sign, which has been attributed to Aristotle's De Interpretatione, a word or spoken signifier is explained by reference to some mental content, which is in turn explained by reference to some actual thing. In classical linguistics, every signifier, as in spoken word, written text, nonverbal gesture, icon, etc., was presumed to refer to and have its significance underwritten by a real existing thing situated outside the symbolic order, or what is also routinely called the transcendental signified. Saussure, on the contrary, argued that the meaning or significance of any term in any sign system was determined only by its difference from the other terms within the system. Consequently, the meaning of a signifier, like the word light, was not something grounded in and guaranteed by the positive content of some real existing thing or transcendental signified, but was determined only by its differential relationship to other signifiers, like the words dark or heavy. This condition is clearly evident on the pages of a dictionary. When you look up the meaning of a word in the dictionary, what you get is not access to the real thing, but only a network of other signifiers, or what Žižek calls a free-floating dispersion of signifiers. In other words, words are defined by other words. This has at least two important consequences. First, it means that, as Jacques Derrida famously characterized it, there is nothing outside the text. A sign system, like a language, is self-contained and closed in on itself. But in being closed in this way, it is also endlessly open insofar as no system of differences can ever complete itself. Consequently, the symbolic order is, as Žižek points out, simultaneously finite and infinite. Second, because signifiers refer only to other signifiers, this produces a seemingly endless chain of reference, creating a never-ending series of equivalences, or a non-totalized bad infinity of signifying representations. For Žižek, this seemingly infinite sequence of referral can be fixed or anchored only through the intervention of a certain nodal point, the Lacanian point de capital, which quilts them, stops their sliding, and fixes their meaning. And this nodal point, or knot, in the series of signifiers is the master signifier, a signifier that, although essentially no different from any other signifier, is situated in such a way that it masters the entire sequence of referral by providing a kind of final reference or guarantee of meaning. It is able to do this, Žižek explains, not because it possesses some special significance, some positive content or fullness of meaning, but simply because it is able to halt the process of referral by the empty gesture of referring only to itself. This reflective signifier is, therefore, nothing more than a kind of cul-de-sac in the chain of equivalences. This means, as Kelsey Wood summarizes it, that beneath the alleged unity of the field of meaning, there is only a tautological, self-referential, performative gesture. Although Žižek supplies numerous examples to explain the master signifier, what would be, in effect, a master signifier of the master signifier, It can perhaps be best illustrated in the symbolic order of money. In what would be an Aristotelian-influenced understanding of money, value is either directly contained in the materiality of the coin, a situation where, as Lacan puts it, the signifier falls into the signified, or, as is the case with paper money, a bill, like $1, functions as a promissory note that refers to and is ultimately guaranteed by some quantity of real value, a precious metal like gold or platinum. In this case, the metal is the transcendental signified, some positive quantity of value that is situated outside the circulation of banknotes and, for this reason, comprises the ultimate ground and guarantee of their significance or value. Beginning in the mid-20th century, however, monetary policy began to shift away from this gold standard and eventually instituted what could arguably be called a structuralist approach. Currently, the value of $1 is not something guaranteed by a specific quantity of real gold held in some actually existing bank vault. Instead, its significance is determined by a system of differences, specifically the way it relates to or trades against other currencies like the euro or the yen, which are nothing more than signifiers of the same type. The master signifier in this symbolic order, the point at which one can identify the real value of a piece of currency, is marked by a seemingly empty and tautological gesture, which says, in effect, a dollar is worth $1. In order for money, or any other social currency, to have meaning, and not to be endlessly deferred in a system of differences, there must be a point, what Lacan calls the point de capiton, at which this seemingly free-floating dispersion of signifiers is arrested, if only temporarily. The way Žižek operationalizes and employs this concept has at least three important consequences. First, the master signifier is arbitrary. Because it is essentially no different from any other signifier, its position as master is only the product of a contingent and capricious decision, a decisive imposition that situates this one as the one around which everything else coalesces and comes to have significance. For Žižek, this aspect can be illustrated by reconsidering the way the term Jew functioned in Nazi ideology. Think about anti-Semitism in 1920s Germany. People experienced themselves as disoriented, thrown into undeserved military defeat, an economic crisis which eroded away their life savings, political inefficiency, moral degradation. And the Nazis provided a single agent which accounted for it all: the Jew, the Jewish plot. Therein lies the magic of the master. Although there is nothing new at the level of positive content, nothing is quite the same after he pronounces his word. In the discourse of anti-Semitism, Jew serves as the final word that effectively explains and accounts for everything else. This occurs not because of some positive content or richness of meaning that necessarily belongs or accrues to this particular word. Instead, it is because it is the word which, as a word, on the level of the signifier itself, unifies a given field, constitutes its identity. Second, because it is arbitrary, this operation can occur only by way of an abyssal, non-founded, founding act of violence. Someone or something asserts one particular signifier over and against all the others as the universal one that totalizes the entire field. This is a deliberate exercise of power, and specifically that kind of social political power that is called hegemony. Consequently, the master signifier is ultimately grounded in a violent imposition. It cannot be further grounded in reasons. It is the point at which one can only say that the buck stops here, a point at which, in order to stop the endless regress, somebody has to say, "It is so because I say it is so." For Žižek, then, Every master signifier comes into being in and by a violent act within the symbolic order. And if we do not usually perceive this violence as such, it is because this non-founded, founding violence is eventually concealed, naturalized, and assumed to be necessary. Finally, and because of this, the master signifier is the site of struggle and ideological confrontation in particular. The objective of any analysis of ideology, however, is not and cannot be to show how things really are, despite and in opposition to what has been said or otherwise represented in the official discourse of the master. Because there is nothing outside the text, ideology and its critique must contend with and be situated in the medium of the signifier. Consequently, the crucial step in the analysis of an ideological edifice is thus to detect, behind the dazzling splendor of the element which holds it together, this self-referential, tautological, performative operation, by which a particular master signifier comes to circumscribe and regulate the entire field. To return to Žižek's example, one does not contest anti-Semitism by exhibiting the true empirical reality of Jewish individuals and demonstrating how they are not anything like what has been misrepresented in the discourse of anti-Semitism. Instead, one contests the ideology of anti-Semitism by targeting the anti-Semitic construction of the Jew as master signifier.